We're live. All right. Welcome to today's welcome to today's workshop. So before we get going, because we haven't done a little workshop and we haven't done a live stream in a while, let's just do a little housekeeping for everybody. The reason that we do a live stream is so that we can interact with you. So if you have questions as we go, or if you have comments as we go, become part of the chat, right? Shoot your comments in there. If you have questions, we're going to stop and we're going to get your questions answered along the way. Now, today's live stream is going to have a three-part format. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the technical aspects of MaxGuard and Clearguard, because we're covering passive moisture controls in attics, basements, and crawl spaces. Okay? So we're going to move from that technical aspect, which could be as helpful for a technician, to a supervisor, a manager, to a salesperson or a marketing person, a business developer, as anybody else, right? So this is all going to be information geared for all parties. And by the way, this is going to be recorded to our YouTube channel, where we've got over 100 videos right now already in our libraries, so that you can go back and review it yourself, review it with your team, use it as a training aid going forward. And at least once a month, if not multiple times a month, we're going to be trying to bring these live streams back and doing these with all these parts. So we're going to hit it from a technical angle first. The second thing is we're going to get hands-on and just go real step by step. We're going to talk about PPE and the materials you're going to need. And I hope you're not catching too much of the background here, but there's guys over there working on some mechanical stuff, so you might hear a wrench from time to time. Then we're going to, we're going to do PPE. We're going to talk about different tools that you're going to need. We're going to go over to the Airless sprayer and take a walk through that, talk about product preparation, those sorts of things. And then we're going to do some demonstration and make sure that whether we're under a crawl space, you understand exactly how to work with the product and how to get the best yield and coverage and application out of the product. We've also got, you can't see it right now, we've also got an open stud cavity right behind us here. We're going to go over there as well and talk about that. A lot of similarities, but we'll walk around today, talk about things. I'm sure questions will come up along the way, right? We're not looking to rush through this. We're just going to take our time, pace ourselves evenly, take it as step by step as we can. And then we're going to get into the selling side of things. And I've mapped this out, so we make sure that we go through all 6 of these with everyone today and answer your questions on the customer interview, creating clarity for the visit, creating an accomplish list, doing an inspection, educating the customer, and estimating and closing the sale. Okay, so we're going to walk through that at the very end. All right, so let's get started and talk about the technical side of MaxGuard and Clearguard. Now, I've got a clipboard here that I'll be working through as we go along so that I stay on track, but all of these documents are available for you and your team in Zoho Docs. So if you ever need to reference these, or you ever want to use these as training guides with your team as well, this video going forward will pair very well with them. And then we'll do other videos too. I'm sure we're going to have X4 videos coming up, OxyPrep, OxyPar, all the different products in the line, Dutreon, so on and so forth. And so you'll have this kind of a training video. You'll have questions from your peers that we're going to be answering along the way. And you'll have all these guides to follow along with as well, both in the office and out in the field. Okay, so we hope that this is real helpful for you. Okay, so the first thing, if I just kind of peel these off of my clipboard here, is we're going to talk about MaxGuard and Clearguard really kind of as a brother and sister, right? The only difference between these is a slight difference in solids level. So when I talk about solids, if you take water, right? Water has 0 solids in it for the most part, right? When we're talking about MaxGuard has about 72% solids in it. So there's more solid, it's more solid than it is liquid, okay? And then when we talk about Clearguard, because we don't have the components that make this white, now we're dialing this back to around a 50% solids product, okay? So when we talk about these two products, they're really brother and sister. And I want to go through them in a way that you understand not only why it's good to use as a product and where to use it as a product in your overall production protocol, your overall sales, but why it functions the way that it does. Okay, so as we go through these together, and I want to point out these sheets to you so you know how they flow, you're going to see that the first thing you're going to come to is a description of the product. So in this case, Clearguard, right? Clear, matte, and breathable mold and moisture-resistant coating for the protection of structural and architectural construction materials in unconditioned, moisture-prone spaces. Applies white, dries clear for both interior and exterior use. Okay, and we'll kind of dive into that a little bit. Then what we do is we dive into the problem that it solves. So structural materials like wood, OSB, and concrete are semi-porous to porous in nature. In unconditioned areas like basements, crawl spaces, and attics, unsealed surfaces can hold high levels of moisture due to repeated bouts of condensation from mechanicals, improper ventilation, moisture release, and dew point events. In addition, natural disasters can drive large amounts of moisture into and through the building envelope to the point of substantial loss. In either case, elevated structural moisture content can ultimately result in mold growth, structural damage, and poor indoor air quality. Okay, so if you're thinking about this from a sales standpoint, that's all really good information and get about what we're trying to either control or prevent. One term that I want to introduce here, and it'll keep coming up over and over again, is this idea of passive moisture controls. Okay, so what we mean by passive moisture controls is a moisture control that doesn't require energy to function. So the opposite of that would be an active moisture control, like a dehumidifier. And neither of those products are good nor bad. They do their own thing very, very well. And the reason that you would maybe use them together is what you would call redundancy, right? Anytime that you engineer something, whether it's a moisture control system for a house or a moisture control system for a crawl space, a commercial space, an industrial space, whatever it might be, those are all engineered controls that you're putting in place, but you want to have some redundancy in those controls because a coating like this is going to seal and repel moisture while being breathable, but it's not going to pull the moisture out of the air, right? Likewise, when the dehumidifier is running properly, it's going to pull moisture out of the air, but if something were to occur where moisture was reintroduced, even if it was a power failure, flood, whatever the case may be, then a moisture control like this that's passive is going to prevent moisture from reaccumulating back into the structural surfaces of the crawl space, the attic, whatever that surface might be. All right, so you'll notice here that once we get through the problem that it solves, then we go into a number of ways that it solves it. So those things are, in this order, seals tenaciously. Now, that might seem like a marketing term, but over the last 15 years, from when we first developed these formulas up through today, when we continue to make tweaks and things of that nature and improve the formulas, we have tested dozens of resins out there on the market, all claiming to be the best. And we will continue to do so. But I can tell you from experience in watching the moisture resistance tests that nothing compares to how durable our resin is in our coating. Now, I'm not going to go and launch into the exact resin that we're using, okay? But I can tell you it is VOC free, so it has no volatile organic compounds coming off of it as you're using it or as it dries, so you don't have to worry about fumes and things like that. And it bonds to a surface like nothing else. In fact, I'm wearing some jeans here where 10 years ago, I got MaxGuard on these jeans, 8 years ago, whatever it might be, and it won't come out to this day. Okay, that's how well it bonds to a surface. So if somebody asks me, how long is this going to remain on the surface? The answer is pretty much until you sand it off, right? It is a very durable product, which is awesome in terms of performance and protecting surfaces. But if you get it on your clothes and you don't rinse it out right then and there, it's not coming out once it cures. But the same thing can be said about the structure. Once it's on the structure, it's not going to wash off. And the way that you use these as permanent, durable, and passive moisture controls, you don't want it coming off the surface anyway, okay? So it should give you confidence that we've done the due diligence and continue to in the lab and in the field to make sure that we're using the best resins for the best long-term durability of the product. Now, the second thing is we say double the product. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, most products in the market have a 20 wet mill requirement. I've got a wet mill gauge here today. And what this is it looks like a credit card, but it's got teeth on it. Okay, let me grab my clipboard so you can see this. It's got these teeth on it. And the way that you use this is when a surface is coated, and I'll hold this out for you a little bit, Grayson, so you can kind of get this. When a surface is coated, those teeth, if the coating is thick enough, those teeth will sit right down into that coating, right? And the tooth that touches it will tell you exactly how much coating you've got on the surface. That's the way you measure wet film thickness. So when we talk about, or let's say this, when we're asked the question about how many square feet per gallon does a coating go, and we come back with an answer of something like 160 square feet per gallon, that's because what we're doing is we're saying, okay, our specification per ASTM testing standards to get the mold and moisture resistance that you're looking for with a 10 or 15 year existing or new construction warranty to prevent against moisture absorption, mold formation, things of that nature, requires 10 wet mills, okay? So the way that we get there is there's a general number that you use in any coating, and that number is 1,600. You divide that by the wet mills, 10 in this case, and that brings you to 160 square feet per gallon. Well, the industry general standard on most protective coatings or encapsulants, if you use that term, is a 20 wet mill standard for most warranties to apply, which means that you only get 80 square feet per gallon. That means that an entire 5-gallon bucket will give you about 400 total feet of coverage, okay? What you can expect from our coating is 800 feet per bucket. Now, what that means is that your cost is substantially lower. So if MaxGuard on the surface, let's say at 10 wet mills, costs you 38 cents per square foot, even if a product is priced comparably to us, it's going to be double the cost on the surface. And this example would be 76 cents a square foot applied. Now, when you're working that, if you use Xactimate, and let's say that Xactimate will allow for a cost of or a price of $2.30. Well, for your coating, if you're using an encapsulant, would you rather be paying 38 cents a square foot or 76 cents a square foot for very similar warranties, better performance, quite frankly, in terms of breathability, moisture resistance, things of that nature, and durability of the antimicrobial compounds, or would you rather be less profitable? So that's a huge difference when it comes to your estimating, your profitability, and how maybe aggressive you can be at times in the marketplace when necessary. All right, let me go back to our papers here and keep me informed if there's any questions that come up from the stream as we go. Now, this is where things diverge a little bit. Okay, so we talked about seals tenaciously, double the product. Now, with MaxGuard, you're going to get great stain blocking. But I was down to see one of our very good friends and a contractor in Birmingham, Alabama, named Lee, who we've worked with for a number of years. And one of the issues that they ran into down there was the difference between warranted application, like I said, 10 wet mills, or application to the point of aesthetics, right, where a customer gets what they are expecting. So one of the things that we really recommend when you're educating your customer, we're going to show you how we're going to help you with this toward the end of this session today, this workshop, is that you're going to want to set expectations, right? Expectation setting is good all the way along through a sales process whenever you're educating a customer. And what you're going to want to do is differentiate between the way the product looks on the surface and functions at 10 wet mils versus maybe what they want it to look like afterward, because they might want it to look like the equivalent of 20 wet mils if that's what it takes to give them that pristine white look, let's say, if you're using MaxGuard, right? So just keep that in mind, that the aesthetic value may be as important to your customer as the functional value is to you as a long-term passive moisture control, okay? Now, so we go over here from absolute stain blocking with MaxGuard, and when we go back to Clearguard, now we're talking about zero shine. Well, the reason that that is important is that you don't want to, after a job is done, let's say you're in the middle of a real estate transaction, right? And this is part of that transaction. The last thing that you want, or especially that the real estate agents want, and let's say the home buyers, is to point out a problem, right? And I think there's a general consensus out there that says if the wood is shiny, right, especially if it's an attic or something like that, then it might have a tendency to point out a problem when it doesn't need to be pointed out. So what we've done is we've dulled the finish of the Clearguard product so it looks completely natural on a surface. Anybody who's ever used the product can attest to, yes, it looks like just a pure wood surface once it's gone on and cured into the surface, okay? So you can expect zero shine out of Clearguard. Now, the next thing that we come to is uncompromised moisture resistance. And again, all of these documents are available in Zoho. If you haven't done so already, send us an email to info@enviroguarddirect.com. Tucker will take care of making sure that you're a member of our products folder, and you'll have access to all of this information whenever you need it, whether it be guides like this, SDS sheets, product information sheets, labels, the list goes on and on. Okay, so we're here at uncompromised moisture resistance. Now, there's an important aspect of any good coating, especially when we're dealing on the structure, where you want good breathability, but you also want moisture resistance, right? So you want vapor in the moisture in the form of vapor to escape the coating, but you don't want it to repenetrate the coating. That's what is really unique about this formulation, right? One of the first really unique things is the ability for our resin system to resist moisture but allow vapor to escape. Okay, so keep that in mind as you're thinking about your sales process, you're thinking about customer education. And again, we've got some tools designed to help you with that, but that might be something that, as far as an arrow in the quiver is concerned, moisture resistance, breathability, that terminology is what you want to kind of keep, in your mind and on the tip of your tongue when you're educating your customer. All right, next thing is award-winning protection. Now, we're fortunate enough to have a very close manufacturing relationship with a raw materials manufacturer, and we share technologies between us, the consumer end, we're the commercial end, they're the consumer end, and we then do R&D together. And in 1996, the antimicrobial in our product won the 1996 Green President's Award for designing safer chemistries. The reason is that our antimicrobial was designed for the hulls of ships. And what the reason it was designed for the hulls of ships is that over time, algae, plankton, all these sorts of things tend to build up on the hulls, and it creates drag, okay? And when you create drag, you increase fuel cost, and that's called fouling. So this was first designed as an anti-fouling agent, but now we incorporate it, and it's got a full EPA registration for this. We now incorporate that into our coatings to protect those coatings against any formation of mold, algae, bacterial films and slimes, things of that nature, okay? So and the reason it's important is two parts. Number one, for durability, because a lot of antimicrobials will leach out fairly quickly from a coating and leave you with zero protection. So durability of the antimicrobial is very important. But as any antimicrobial releases over time, you also don't want to create an environmental hazard. And our product does not create an environmental hazard, which is why it won the 1996 Green President's Award. So again, as you're working with us, I mean, most of you guys probably know us, and that we're as engaged in making sure you get good technical training with our products, and also making sure that when you go to market with a service, that you're prepared to differentiate from your competition in your sales process. So if you want to have a conversation with us about this, shoot us an email, right? Or give us a call, or send us a text for that matter. And let us know that you'd like to, schedule 30 minutes with us. And I think you would use, Tucker, tell me if I'm wrong, support at enviroguarddirect.com. So if you need to schedule something with us and begin working together on improving information within the education portion of your sale to your customer or anywhere else, just let us know. We're happy to jump in and help anytime. All right, so we talked about award-winning protection. The next thing is unidirectional breathability. We talked about that moisture resistance side of things. This is the other component, right? You gotta be breathable. You will have to allow moisture to escape your coating. There are times that you don't want things to escape the surface, such as if you're sealing for odor, right? If you're doing odor sealing, such as with our Vapor Lock product, you want to have a very low vapor permeance to that coating. And that's why on that side of things, we're not on the acrylic side, we're over on the vinyl side, right? But on these, you want to be on the acrylic side because acrylics are designed to breathe or let moisture escape. So it's a very important component of what we do. And what that means is that if the moisture content in wood is, let's say, above dry standard, which in most states is going to be 15%, it'll allow that moisture to continue to escape. Now, do you want to apply this to a wet piece of wood or something of that nature? Of course not. You want to get into a reasonable zone so that you get curing and adhesion and things of that nature. But as we'll probably discuss in a little bit here, that can be helped along also by a dehumidifier. So keep that in mind that, as we're doing this and you say, hey, we got 22% moisture, can we go ahead and coat? The answer is probably going to be yes, but do it with a dehu so you can get a good cure when you're putting the coating on the surface. All right, so unidirectional breathability is very important as well. Versatile for all projects. So whether you're working in new construction, existing construction, post-mold remediation, these two products, MaxGuard and Clearguard, can meet the needs of everything from the industrial hygienist who you're working with, who may have a specification that they are looking to set, all the way through the direct cash sale that you're making with a residential property owner, and then onto the industrial and institutional sides of things if you have ongoing projects and contracts over there as well. So these products can match up to any project that you're working on in the field. And if you need us to help you put together things like square footages, board footages, understand application costs, rates, things of that nature, we do it all day, every day. We are at our desks a lot of times in a web meeting, going step by steps through a calculator so that you can see exactly where these costs are coming from and why maybe the crawl space that you thought was 1,500 square feet is more like 4,500 board feet in total, so that you can get your estimating right so that you can maximize your profitability. At the end of the day, our number one goal is for our customers to be profitable, okay? And then the last thing is our unmatched warranty. We have a 10/15-year warranty on existing and new construction, and that warranty takes into consideration the replacement cost of our products, okay? So if something goes wrong and our product doesn't perform to the specifications on the label, as long as it's applied correctly to the surface, then, and the warranty's been submitted, right, obviously, to us, then you are covered for the replacement value and or replacement product itself for any job. So we're happy to stand behind our products. And matter of fact, I was having a conversation, not about a failure, but about that this morning, and making sure that we get that information out there so that people understand that, we're a manufacturer. We stand behind our products, and we're standing behind you and your services. Okay, so that gets us through the fundamentals guides. Tucker, is there anybody who's asking any questions yet that we need to? Okay, good. All right. So now we move from our fundamentals guides to over here in our step-by-step guides. So let's kind of pivot. We're transitioning from the technical information on the products and why and how they work, over to how you use them. All right. So the first thing is, let's talk about personal protection. So I'm just going to move these tips real quick, and we'll get back to specs in just a little bit here. But let's talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about coveralls. We're going to talk about some additional skin protection. And then let's talk about respiratory and eye protection. Okay. Now, you're going to notice that we're very specific with personal protection. If we're talking about OxyPrep and OxyPar, well, we're probably talking about a setup that's more like this, right? Because we're dealing with oxidizers. But we're not dealing with oxidizers here. What we're talking about is using the proper respiratory protection for coatings, which is an organic vapor cartridge, okay? An organic vapor cartridge. And you might be saying to yourself right now, well, that's not an organic vapor cartridge. That's a multi-gas, multi-vapor cartridge. Well, I'm using it for demonstration, first of all. But the reason is that this has an organic vapor cartridge built into it. So it's a combo cartridge that has both, okay? And we keep these around because we cross-train on everything. One day we might be training on coatings. The next day we might be training react extract, right? So we just keep these as standard because it covers us in all situations. Okay, but what you can use for coatings and sealants is a half-face respirator. You don't have to have a full-face respirator as long as you have glasses or goggles. And I would recommend using the goggles because you're going to get protection here around the sides. So just in case you get a little fogging, if you will, of the coating at any point, it's not going to get to anybody's eyes. So I would, always opt for goggles over glasses. Okay, so that's eye and respiratory. As far as skin protection is concerned, nitrile is your best case scenario. And really, let's be honest, the nitrile gloves just keep your hands free from the coating, and more than that, free from the coating building up in the hair on your arms and things, which is quite painful later on. So anyway, nitrile gloves are the way to go there for hand protection. And then all that you need for protection with coatings and sealants, in this case MaxGuard and Clearguard, is something that keeps your clothes from getting ruined, okay? And what we would consider this is like splash resistant, right? Which is all that you're going to have if you're using an airless sprayer to apply either of these coatings with. You don't need anything more. Great thing about these is they're very breathable. You can stay comfortable in them for the duration of your treatment, your application, okay? So that's all there is to the PPE side of things. All right. So now that let me mention one other thing. If you don't want to ruin your shoes, right, you might want some booties. If you're getting into an area and you go, you know what I'm doing is standing straight up. I'm not working in a crawl space or anything like that. Well, then do this. You might not need a full suit. You might be good enough with sleeves and your nitrile gloves, right? And that might be plenty to keep you clean. And that way you're not wasting PPE when you don't need it. Okay, so just keep in mind that these sleeves can be great if you're just working, in wall cavities on studs and things like that. So just, not everybody knows that these exist, but these are much cheaper than a suit. All right, so now that we've talked about that, let's go on to some material requirements. Of course, it goes without saying that MaxGuard or Clearguard, depending upon which product you've chosen or which product you've offered your customer and they have chosen, is going to be what you need. And again, if you have questions about coverage, if you want us to dig into that with you so you get the specs right on your jobs, just let us know. We are very happy to help you out by phone. Matter of fact, we've been doing a lot of on-site visits. I'm getting ready to go to South Florida in like 10 days. And Tucker and I are going to go down and do some training on a Saturday with a customer down there for the full day. And we've got a lot of these things popping up our schedules. Grace and I are going to be on a fire job next Friday down in Asheville. That's a lot louder than I thought it was going to get. So I apologize about that. All right, so let's get into some material requirements. In addition to your MaxGuard and Clearguard, the first material requirement that I would suggest are wet film thickness gauges. If you need these, let us know, right? We're here to be a resource to you, and we're happy to provide these to you free of charge. So just let us know, and we'll get these on the way to you so that you can. That's a lot louder than I thought it was going to be. I don't know if that's going to help anything. In any case, wet film thickness gauges. Hey, Tucker, would you go ask those guys to just kind of keep it down, if you will? That's way louder than it needs to be. All right, so wet film thickness gauges to measure the wet film thickness of your coatings on the surface are the first thing. The next thing is a drill and paddle mixer. Stay right there. I'm going to be right back. So when I was getting ready today, we were getting the coating prepared, and we're doing this video so that even if you have zero expertise or experience in this, you know what everything looks like and what you need to have on hand. Now, so this is a paddle mixer, and this is a little bit different than some. Some just have like a literal paddle on the bottom. This will create a nice vortex in a coating, which I prefer. It looks like a spiral, right? So I would recommend this one above a straight up paddle mixer because it'll make less mess when you go to mix that up, because eventually a coating is manufactured as a suspension. That means that you have very tiny microscopic particles that are suspended in the liquid portion of your product, which is where your resins and things like that come into play. But eventually, over time, they begin to separate out. And when they do, then you can use a mixer just like this to pull that back together into a homogeneous solution, so you get great application and great quality. So I would recommend this above a general paddle mixer. It'll make less mess. All right. Then we've got the airless sprayer. Okay, so as you can see here, I've got a gun right here attached to the hose going to the airless sprayer right over there, and that's all set up. And then in addition to your airless sprayer, I would recommend that you have a series of lances. And these lances are great for staying out from underneath chemical. If you have ever worked with us, one of the things that we talk about, whether we're on the cleaning side of things and the antimicrobial application side of things, or on the coating and sealant side of things, is we always say don't work underneath the chemistry. Why? It creates an unnecessary mess and an unnecessary liability in some cases. So get yourself several of these. This is what, 24 inches or 20-inch wand? 20-inch wand. You can get these 3 feet long, 4 feet long, 5 feet long. But, as long as you've got 2 or 3 feet on the end of this, it's going to keep you out from underneath that coating and keep you clean. At the end of that, you've got your cage here. And within that cage is where your tips go. And we're going to go through tip selection in just a little bit so that you understand that as well. So here's your airless sprayer. The next thing you want to have is have a bunch of towels on hand, okay? As you're taking this apart, you've got your wrenches and all this sort of thing. Not only are you going to work with, you have water, you're going to have coating and things of that nature. And it's good to stay clean yourself and keep the work site clean. So just have a bunch of cheap towels that you can launder with you at all times. Also, have a bucket or two of water on hand. Just fresh, clean water. Put 2 gallons in each 5-gallon pail. I can guarantee you're going to need 2 of them on every job. One for cleaning up, parts like this, and the other one when you're, cycling your coating through and priming your airless sprayer. Okay, so 2 buckets with a couple gallons of water. Talked about extension lances. Let's get into tips and tip sizes. And I'm just going to pull a few of them here for us. The first one I'm going to pull is a 311 tip. So what does a 311 tip mean? Well, the first number on that, the 3, and that can be 1 or 2 numbers. It could be a 1211, okay? But in this case, it's a 311. 3 multiplied by 2 gives you 6 inches of fan width, 12 inches from the surface. So if I've got this tip inserted into this cage right here, okay, right there. And I'm 12 inches from this surface, then we're going to get a 6-inch fan pattern on that surface. Okay. Now, what is the second two numbers? What do the second two numbers mean? That is the orifice size. Okay. So when we're talking and specifying the product, the first number or two doesn't matter as much as the last number or two, because this is all about your efficiency, how wide that fan width is, right? But if you have a 21, that's a big orifice size, which means that you're going to get more product delivered to the surface faster. Now, if you can keep up with that and not waste product, that means that you're more efficient in your spraying application. However, what you're probably going to want to start out with is something like a 17 tip right here. So this is a 5/17. That means you're going to have a 10-inch wide fan pattern, 12 inches from the surface, and that's a medium-sized tip, let's say. Okay, it's going to give you plenty of output, so you're getting product on the surface fast enough, but not so much that you just waste product and you've got product running down that surface. Okay, so we recommend with MaxGuard, start with a 17, maybe biggest size, a 19 tip. If you find that for some reason maybe it's colder, right? And MaxGuard and in all coatings, the colder it gets, the thicker it gets. So if you find that you're having to reverse the tip out too often, and I'll explain that in a moment. If you're having to clear your tip too often, go up one size, go up to a 19. It'll probably prevent you from having to clear that tip. So let's talk about that. If while you're spraying, all of a sudden it just slows to a trickle on you, all that you have to do is spin that tip around. Okay, it looks like an arrow. So if it's pointing in the direction of the arrow, you're free to spray. If it's pointing the opposite direction, that's how you clear your tip. And all that requires is a quick burst like that. It'll clear that tip, and then you can go right back to spraying like you were. Okay? All right, let's make sure we finish this up here. And if there's any questions that come up about tip size or anything, just let me know about that. Tip cleaners. I don't have any on me right now, but you can actually get tip cleaners that you can just thread right through the orifice. You're not going to be able to see it from there, but all of these, this is a 5/17, okay? So you can get a series of tip cleaners, and you can just thread them through there so that you keep that, free of debris and that sort of thing. Now, what I would recommend is after your job, or if you're going to take lunch for an hour or something like that, drop this into some water, right? When you go out to lunch, or of course overnight for soaking, after you use it for the day, and then thread that tip cleaner right through there, and it'll help you preserve your tips. What wears away at these tips is the solids within the coating, okay? And ours are ceramics, so you've got very fine ceramics in here, which give you great durability, but over time the wear on your tips. But if you can keep these nice and clean, they'll last longer for you. If you start seeing a lot of fishtailing and things, where you've got some real heavy streaks going down, you've probably worn out that tip. Another thing is it'll start to sound different, right? It'll go from that pure spray sound to get real loud all of a sudden, or over time, and that'll tell you that you need to replace your tips as well. The last thing, and this is for your airless sprayer itself, is a pump fluid. You want to run a pump fluid through your airless sprayer at the end of operation every time that you use it, so you don't have any corrosion or anything within the system. It'll help your pump last longer. Okay? All right, so I think we've covered most things there. So now let's go and talk about site preparation. We're going to stay here for just a minute, and I want to make sure that we run through this. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to inspect or assess the job site. When we get to the sales side of things in just a little while, you're going to notice that we've got this great inspection guide. It allows you to go kind of down your list and make sure you've checked all the boxes. Also allows you to draw out the area that you're going to be working in, that you're proposing working in. So doing a site assessment or an inspection is going to be key in delivering the right service to your customer with the right estimate. So it simply says here, job site evaluation and inspection should be completed on the mechanical systems, plumbing, and within areas that production protocol is being executed. Any necessary remediation or emergency services such as water or fire damage restoration should be completed prior to the protocol. And then it says surfaces should be at less than 20% moisture content prior to use. So that's our goal, right? Our goal is always 20% or less. However, like I said, dehumidifiers can be used to get us there or to get us close. And as long as we don't have a surface that's substantially wet, the nice thing about our coatings is that they do allow vapor to escape, right? So even if it's 20, 21, 22, 23%, if we're using a dehumidifier with that to dry those surfaces down, you'll be just fine and you'll get a good cure when using the products. And then we kind of follow up with another statement about that. And then cover all surfaces with polished sheeting that should not be painted, okay? Be neat about it, right? If you need some good 4 mil or 6 mil polished sheeting to cover up, a trunk line or something like that, so it looks nice, or you've got the HVAC's running in a crawl space or up in an attic space, go and prep that space out to begin with, so you don't make a mess and don't have a problem with the homeowner later on. So that's a little bit about site preparation. Now let's talk about equipment preparation and setup. So the two products are going to be applied the same way. And Grayson, I'm just going to leave these here for right now. And we're going to take this with us on the clipboard. And I'm going to meet you right over there with this. All right. Good with that. All right. So here is a well-loved airless sprayer. You can tell because it looks like it's about to fall apart. One of the first things that we say in the guide here is while 10 wet mils is the standard for warranted coverage, you might find that you need more MaxGuard for covering darker surfaces and blocking severe stains. This is a point that I want to talk about while we're here. So stain bleed through can be a problem with a coating if one of the reasons that you're using the coating is to block stains. And the number one reason we see or there's a perception about a coating failing like MaxGuard from stain bleed through is when you apply that coating all at one time. The way a coating for stain blocking should be applied is that the first coat, which is why we recommend a tack coat, should be applied and allowed to dry for at least 2 hours prior to finishing it. The reason is that that first coat will absorb the staining, the tannins, or the moisture into that coat so that you don't get bleed through. And then when you follow up on that, now you're going to overcoat that with another tack coat, and that will prevent stain bleed through. If you're just doing one coat of product, and it's, let's say 10 wet mils, or you're using another product and it's 20 wet mils, but you're doing it all at one time, and then you see that stain begin to bleed through, you didn't set the stain in the first coat the first time, okay? So keep in mind that a quick tack coat can save you a lot of aggravation later on. However, sometimes that's a challenge, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get into talking about joists and those sorts of things. But just keep that in the back of your mind and as a possibility for quality control of your coating application, especially if you're stain blocking. Okay. Now, let's talk about setting up an airless sprayer properly. First thing that you should do is you should set the airless sprayer up away from where you're working. Okay. So right now, if that's maybe a crawl space back there, we're outside the crawl space, we're going to set it up outside the crawl space, free from feet and other impediments that might knock it over or turn it off or whatever. So set it up outside the space you're working in. Now you want to plug your airless sprayer. I've got it plugged in over here. You want to plug it into a 110 volt outlet. And you want to, if there's an extension wire that's desired, go ahead and attach that to your handle before you begin doing anything else. Go ahead and get your can you see me still on camera? Okay. Okay. Go ahead and get that wand set up. Make sure your tips and everything are already engaged. Make sure everything's tightened down and secure. Okay. Which brings up one other thing. Tool-wise, keep 2 wrenches on you all the time. Now, I like adjustable wrenches, but it doesn't have to be adjustable wrenches. But just keep 2 wrenches on you the entire time for an airless sprayer, because you're always going to be kind of fighting against things that tend to spin, right, swivel on these. So you're going to have 2 wrenches to loosen and tighten stuff up. So 2 wrenches is essential. Let's see here. All right, minimum tip size for MaxGuard is 17. Minimum tip size for Clearguard is 15. Can you go higher? Yes, you can. Just be cautious of overuse of the product. So only go up to a tip size for as comfortable as you are, or as experienced as you are, if that makes sense, right? If you're super experienced and you can fly through a crawl space or an attic or something like that, because you've got a lot of time on an airless sprayer, you might go up to a 21 or a 23 tip because you're just that good, right? But start with a 17 for MaxGuard and a 15 tip for Clearguard. Let's do this. We've already talked about how to determine those numbers and spray patterns, tighten all joints, and then run the sprayer hose into the area that you're using it in. All right. Flip over to the back, and I know most of you are just looking at this live stream or this video, but if you have gone to and downloaded this step-by-step guide from Zoho Docs, then you would flip over to the back, and the next side is called product preparation. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to use a paddle mixer to mix this up. Let's go ahead and do that so you can kind of see what I was talking about just a few minutes ago when it comes to the vortex. And I'm just going to move this out of here and over into this bucket of water. And I'm going to bring this bucket of water over with my paddle mixer right here. Okay. Drop it right into my drill. Okay. Now, Grayson, if you would, come right down in here, and I want you to look into this bucket. Okay? So this is our MaxGuard. We've already mixed this up, but I want you to see this. So if I'm starting this out pretty thick, go ahead and start it real slow, and you see how that vortex is forming right there? Well, if the reason that you want to always mix your coating is that it breaks the surface tension. You saw how thick it was before. Well, if I just tried to speed it up immediately, it would go all over the place. But now I can gradually increase the speed of my paddle mixer and have zero mess, right? And before you know it, you've just got a nice fluid coating that's going to run right through your sprayer, okay? Now, what you're seeing there, see how you've got, some bubbles and things in there? Not a big deal, okay? That's because we've got special wetting agents so that it penetrates the surface that is being applied to, and you have great durability initially as the product is curing, right? So I'm just going to put this back over here, release that, and now we've got a properly prepared coating. All right. Stay on track here. Now, one of the things that you want to do with your sprayer is you've got 2 sides from this sprayer. Can you see that all right there, Grayson? Okay. So this side right here, this is the draw tube. It's going to draw the coating up into your sprayer and your line, okay? We're going to go ahead and drop that right into MaxGuard over here. And then this side is going to allow you to circulate what's ever in the system right now through it. So if we had a bucket of clean water over here, then we're going to be able to clean out the coating in the system. But if I want to prime it, right, now I can turn on my airless sprayer. And then if you shift this little switch over here, if you just kind of come over right here, this little switch right here is going to prime the system, and you know that it's priming, or circulating, I should say, not priming, circulating, because you've got coating coming out the other side of it, just like that. Now, I'm going to drop this back in, and I'm going to turn this back to a horizontal orientation to prime, okay? Now, I'm going to turn this down here. And what I can't tell on this pump, because we rented this pump, is that I can't tell where the setting is, because it's all covered up, where the prime is, okay? The prime might be in there, or it might be low. But for right now, we're just going to keep it set right there. Okay. Now, one of the things about pressure is that when you, and I'm just going to stand up to do this, when you begin spraying your product, you're going to see probably one of two things happen. I would start on the low pressure side of things to begin with. We might be a little tilted there, so be careful of our orientation if you would. If you begin to see like big streams appear on either side of your tip as you're beginning to test your pressure, just know that that probably means that your pressure is too low, okay? If you begin to get fogging, that means your pressure is too high and you need to reduce the pressure. So keep those two things in mind. Either streams, that is if you got a good tip, streams or fogging can tell you whether you need to increase or decrease your pressure for quality. All right, now this gets over to the use instruction side. So we talked about product preparation, and we've got two more things to talk about here. One is use instructions, and then the second thing is completing the job. Now, you're going to see that our use instructions are broken down into two separate ideas. The first is on flat surfaces to ensure a consistent application. But then you'll see down here it says when spraying joist bays, okay? So know that within the use instructions of the products, we talk about both things. And quite honestly, when you're thinking about spraying joist bays, whether it's in a crawl space environment or a wall cavity or in an attic space, it's all the same. The principles are the same for coatings application. So let's do this first. Let's talk about flat surfaces. And if this surface were flat right here, and it's not, okay, we're dealing with studs, but if this surface were flat, I would want to definitely do 2 tack coats, but I would want to do those tack coats as hash, what was it called? Half hatching. Okay, I want to use a technique called half hatching, and what that technique is that I would apply either vertically or horizontally first, right? So I would work, if I wanted to start from the top, I would start 12 inches from the surface and work my way down, right, in one direction. And that's the first hash. And I would work that way, overlapping 50% on a flat surface as I go. So that might apply to something like if you're doing a basement wall, okay, or a foundation wall or something of that nature. Or for that matter, you're painting, wall board or something. You would work vertically 12 inches from the surface first, overlapping 50% as you go, okay? Because a lot of times, if you put this, in the hands of somebody who's never used it before, they're going to go like this, right? You've probably seen that before, and they're not going to make consistency at all. You want long strokes, right? 12 inches from the surface. And then the half hatch is when you do the same thing, but come back horizontally, overlapping 50% as you go. What that means is that you'll be able to make very quick work and very consistent work of any surface. So if I were working on this, those strokes might look more like this, right? Where you're really able to move your way down that wall quickly, and likewise, I can move, right? I can move very quickly this way as well, okay? Now, one of the things that you'll want to talk with new technicians about is releasing at the end of each stroke, right? Otherwise, you're going to get down here, and as you come back up, you're going to be overlapping too much, and you're going to create a mess, right? You're going to get a lot of dripping and running. So you want to squeeze, stroke, squeeze, stroke, squeeze, stroke, all the way across the surface, okay? Again, fast, even coverage, vertically or horizontally to begin with, and then in the opposite direction, always overlapping 50% will give you very consistent results at the end of the day. Now, if you're working on a flat surface, the other thing you may want to do for final consistency of the project is simply back rolling. Okay, so if you want it to look really nice, let's say you're in a basement and they want to do like one of these semi-conditioned basements, right, where you got a foundation wall, whether it be block or preformed or poured or whatever the case may be, but you're really just applying to the concrete itself. Well, then this is going to give you your bright white finish, if you will. It probably won't have to look super nice, like a finished wall. So don't be afraid to come back and back roll that so you just got a super smooth coat at the end, all right? If you're in a crawl space, you're working in stud cavities like this, it's not going to matter, right? You don't have to have a fine finish on it. I will tell you this. The finer that second number of your tip is, right? If I've got a 17 here, if I dial that back to a 13, I'm going to get a far finer finish. And there are actually tips that are made for fine finishes as well. So keep in mind that just because we use a workhorse tip like this for most structural things doesn't mean that you can't get a tip that's better for any job that you might be doing requiring a finer finish, okay? It could be the same size tip, but because it's made for fine finishing, a 17 here in something that's just your everyday tip as compared to, I think it's a yellow tip that gives you a finer finish, might be the same orifice size, but give you a totally different look in the end if you don't want to do back rolling. Okay. Now, let's go underneath the crawl space right here. We just built, it looks more like a table probably from where you're at. You pick that up, Grayson, and follow me over here. All right. So here we are, and we're looking at, if you kind of pan across here for me, Grayson, what we're looking at here is what you might consider a joist system, okay? And when we're working with you and we're trying to kind of dial in what kind of square footage, what kind of product yield you're going to get, we're going to ask you questions like what size joists are you working with? Is it a 2x8, 2x10, 2x12? And on what kind of centers? It might be on a 12-inch center, a 14-inch center, a 16-inch center. That will help us dial you in terms of coverages, okay, and coverage rates and how much product you're going to need. It's going to help you on the estimating side and make sure that you're profitable the entire time. So if you would, I'm going to go ahead and put my tip up here. What we recommend doing is always start at the end of a joist bay, okay, and use the bottom of your joist as a guide. So this is just a 2x6 right here. So that means if I'm going to get 12 inches from the surface, I've got to be down here to do it. Okay. Now, if I were to spray straight up from where I'm at right now, I might not get the entire side of this this joist right here because of where my tip is oriented. However, if I come right to the middle and I turn up at maybe a 20 to 30 degree angle, now I'm going to get the majority of that joist bay, right? I'm going to get the bottom of the joist, the side and the corner angled in here. And it's probably going to spread around most of the rest of that 12 inches from that sheathing, okay? So here's where I'm going to start. I'm going to come straight back in a stroke like this. And then I'm going to move to the other side, right? Same type of angle, come straight back like this. And now I've completed that space right there. I've got my double overlap coverage like I would on a flat surface. And now I can just keep moving back, right? Now, I get it. I've got 3 feet in total between this sheathing and this floor right now, right? It's not a 2-foot space like you might run into, or some of you guys are there saying, I wish we had 2 feet. The same principle is if we were in an even shorter crawl space. The difference is I'm still taking advantage of the same angle, right? I'm just doing it in a tighter crawl space where I'm angling up, and working my way back, okay? So always start at the foundation wall and work your way back. And then once you get to the other foundation wall, maybe where my feet are right now, I'm going to spin around and finish that up, okay? All right, I think we're good with that. Let's move back to where we were. All right. All right, so we've talked about flat surfaces. Let me know when you got me back in focus again.
You good?
Okay. It's probably on a little bit of an angle right now. It looks like it anyway. All right, so we talked about flat surfaces. We talked about joist space. Now let's talk about completing the job. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to remove the draw tube, and we're going to place that into our water right over here. Okay, so now our recirculating tube and our draw tube are in the same thing, and we're going to do what we did in the beginning, and that is we're going to flip the switch vertically here, turn the system on, and just turn up pressure, and now we're going to circulate all of the coating out of the pump. Let me just clean this one up so it's consistent, okay? And it's just going to continue to purge all of the coating that's in here until it's done, okay? And a lot of you have seen this before. You know exactly what I'm doing to clean this out. And then once that's cleaned out, I'm going to go get another bucket of fresh water, and I'm going to circulate another couple gallons at least of fresh water through the system once all the coating is circulated out of here. And then I'm going to follow that up by circulating the pump fluid. The pump fluid is going to come, let me turn this off. The pump fluid is going to come in about a liter, right? Around a liter or a quart. And you're going to circulate all of that into the system. And you want that to stay in the system overnight or to the next time that you use it. And then you're going to start out again by purging that out of the system with some water behind it, followed by your coating, okay? Let's make sure we got everything covered here. So I give some more explicit instructions right here where we go very step by step. Turn off unit, power to unit, fill 5-gallon bucket, place the draw tube, recirculate, allow 20 to 30 seconds of the water recirculating, empty it. We go through all those instructions there. Spray the clean water back through the line, right? Allow it to run clear through your tip, and then finish up with your pump fluid. All right, so just follow me back over here. All right, so that really concludes the entire step-by-step guide involved in controlling structural moisture and mold in unconditioned spaces with MaxGuard and Clearguard. Tucker, I'm going to take a sip of water. Do I have any questions or anything yet? You guys can feel free to ask questions anytime you have them. So now let's move from the technical side and the step-by-step kind of field side of things, and let's start talking about the sales side of things. So in Zoho Docs, we've got 2 sheets, and I've said this, I say this every time we're in a meeting with a customer, and that is we've been very fortunate to have great friends and customers over the years work with us to develop a lot of this information. We're always all working on improving our companies, and the fact that we've got customers, and I'm going to just throw out some names here like Tim and Jimmy up in Indiana, is really just a blessing. Okay, and Jimmy was kind enough to work with me to help other customers of ours develop a reproducible sales process to give you consistency in what you do on the sales side of things so that you can expand, right? So you can go from it not just being about you and how good maybe you are at closing because you're very technical and and people believe you because maybe you're the owner of the company, to the point where you have a team of salespeople or business developers who are able to get the same results, even if they're not as technical as you are. Okay, so the first sheet that we're going to come to here is our, I'm sorry, had the wrong one, is our assessment guide. This is going to have two parts to it. It's got the interview and it's got the clarity for today's visit here. So I'm going to go through some of these questions and I'm going to ask them, but I'm also going to explain them as we go. So beyond obviously having the customer's information around here, the first question and the first series of questions is for some basic baseline. When was the home built? How long have you lived here? How long do you plan to live here? Let's take those three questions first. Why are those important questions to ask? Well, if you understand how long ago the home was built, then you probably have some idea of the kind of construction maybe that went into the home, maybe the type of maybe the type of floor system that's in the home. Was it, you know, an Advantech flooring system, or is this, you know, are we talking about a home that was built 30 or 40 years ago and maybe it's plywood, right? All of those types of things are good to know going into an inspection. How long have you lived here tells you how much they may know about the home. If they bought this home and they just bought it a year ago, but it's a 30-year-old home, do they know anything about the mechanical systems? Do they know anything about the construction itself? What kind of insulation they have? Probably not. That might lead you to a little more thorough inspection of the home so that you can bring as much good information back to them as possible. And how long do you plan to live here? Well, that tells you all about the game plan that they might be interested in setting up and how you might want to move the conversation along in terms of remediation, moisture controls, the type of moisture controls that you're using, and how important that would be to them. Let's go into the next one. Have you noticed cold floors or drafts, right? Why is that question important? Well, later on, it might be important for you to insulate the foundation walls, right? And to tighten up that building envelope. So by asking that question right now, you're prepping yourself for the sales side of things, at least the suggestion of what they should do to get the results that they're looking for. And if you have a customer go, you know what? Now that you mention it, our floors are awfully cold in the winter. It's something we complain about all the time, but we haven't done anything to address it yet. Ding, ding, ding. Now you know something else that you want to look at when you're doing inspection, because the question will be, well, can you address that? And are you able to address that in your services? Have you seen mold upstairs yet? Okay, so if you are in a basement or a crawl space and you ask that question and you end with yet, what does that mean? That means that, well, you may not see anything right now, but you're bound to see it if you don't do something about it sooner rather than later, right? When did you first notice the problem? Okay, that's going to give you an idea of, are we talking about something that you developed last year, we're just getting to now? Did it recently occur? How frequently is that customer of yours under that crawl space, if that's what we're talking about, or in that attic, right? Are they using that attic for storage? I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. What changes have you noticed since then? And we give some things out to the side here, such as mold growth, musty smell, water intrusion, leaks. Why do we put those things in gray and kind of gray it out over there? Because it'll give you, if you're on the sales side, a little bit of guidance to kind of ask some follow-up questions. And then what about the problem concerns you? Property value, peace of mind, quality of life. It could be a number of things that are concerning to that homeowner. I know, it's loud. It's loud to me.
Well, we've got a question.
Oh, we do? Okay. What is our question?
Where can we find the assessment guide in the Zoho docs? You want to read that?
Yeah. So the assessment guide is under the business development folder.
Yep.
Okay. So it's in the.
No email from.
Okay. What?
It's Samar who asked.
Oh, okay. Hey, Samar. It's in the business development folder. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that you're a member of the business development folder, and all these sheets are right in there. You can download them, and you can either use them like right on an iPad, or you can print them out and use them, in a sheet form like this. Okay. Why do you want to fix the problem now? Did something happen, or did something change recently? Right? What repairs have been attempted in the space in the past. That tells you like what's been tried before. A lot of customers will tend to try to put a Band-Aid on it and maybe do it in a cheap way to begin with, only realize that it failed time and time again, and now it's time to fix it the right way. So ask that question. What repairs have been attempted in the space in the past? If they haven't been attempted, then you might want to explain that your idea of fixing the problem isn't putting a Band-Aid on it, it's about a permanent solution. How would you like to use the crawl space or basement? They might want to convert a basement into a living space. They might want to turn the crawl space into this dank, damp place into a storage space. So it's important to know that, because instead of putting down, a 6 mil vapor barrier, you might want to go with a reinforced 10 mil vapor barrier for durability and to keep it clean. What is most important to you about fixing it? Warranty, price, a fast installation, a permanent fix, right? Feel free to elaborate with your customers in these areas. This is the time to really get all the information out on the table. It might take 30 minutes to go through these questions to really understand where your customer's coming from. What professional advice have you received, if any? Why didn't you have them fix it, right? If they had a professional come in, why didn't they fix it? Could have been price. It could have been they just didn't, they weren't professional, or they didn't seem like they had the right amount of knowledge. We've all been there, right? Where you've worked with the professional who obviously has information that's valuable to you that can fix your problem. It doesn't matter if you're looking to buy a set of speakers or a TV, or if you're looking for a service like this. We've all been in that situation where you go, that is a professional. And then you've got those guys who, pardon the terminology, BS you. You know when you're being BS, right? So maybe they didn't have a professional fix it because they felt like they were being BS'd. Have you already budgeted for the project? That's important for understanding whether they need financing options or not, right? We work with Green
CIT
Serve?
financing. CIT financing.
Nope. I forget the Green Sky for the financing side of things. So if you don't have a financing partner already, we can make that introduction for you. And if you do, great. That question is asked right there so that if they're going to be financing it cash themselves, or if they might need a little help outside of that. Yep.
Did you say it for him?
Yeah. This is from Advanaclean of Badgerland.
Yeah.
Sorry I missed the owner or the answer to Samar. How do we get access to Zoho Docs?
Okay. So shoot us an email at support@enviroguarddirect.com. Tucker will pick all of those up this afternoon. And then anything that you need, from the products folder to the business development folder, the marketing folder, on and on. We'll go through that this afternoon because we've given ourselves time after this to kind of really button up all of these details and make sure we get those invitations out to you. Okay, so support@enviroguarddirect.com. Just give us a heads up that you want an invitation to all the folders, and we'll get that out to you this afternoon. Okay. Other than yourself, who will be deciding how you fix the problem? Is it a spouse? If they're older, is it maybe their children? Is it a relative or something of that nature? Know who's involved in the decision-making process. You need all the decision makers there when you're talking. Do they think fixing it is equally important? Okay, if they're bought in and everybody's on the same page, great. If they're not, it might be time to say, well, listen, before we spend all this time here going through this, why don't we get them in here or schedule another time to get together so that we can answer their questions at the same time too. And then, when do you want to have the work done? Is this something that they want to have done now? Is it 30 days? Are they kicking the tires, right? You need to understand from your own standpoint, right? Time is important, right? There's nothing more important than our time. If somebody is kicking the tires, you don't want to be, have the expectation that they want to get this project going right now if they don't have the money, time, or impetus to do it right now. So ask that question. When do you want to have the work done? Within 30 days, within 90 days, right? Give them, find that information out. Now, second step in this, that's the interview. Second step is clarity for today's visit. So let's go through these questions real quick and stop me as we go along if you have a question about it. If mold is found Is remediation and prevention important today? Okay, that's a yes or a no, right? This is kind of going down and ticking this off. If mold's found today, is remediation important? Is remediation and prevention important today? We always, by the way, Jimmy taught me this. Always use the word today at the end of these questions, right? It's about the here and now. What is important for you today? Because it might not be important today. It might be important next year, right? This might be something where they go, these things are important for me today, but because of my budget, these other things are important to me 6 months from now, 12 months from now, okay? Understand what's important today. If mold staining is found, is removal important today? This goes directly to aesthetics, but it parses out remediation and prevention from mold stain removal. Know your customer and know what's most important to them. If foundation efflorescence is found, is redensifying important today? They may need a little bit of explanation what efflorescence is, right? And then you can go in and explain, hey, it might be ugly. And originally, remember when you thought that it might be mold? Well, efflorescence is when the calcium hydroxide is coming out of the wall, and that's actually solids wicking from the inside of your foundation wall to the inside of your foundation wall and depositing on the inside. And what happens is that you're losing density in that foundation wall over time, and our service can redensify that so you don't have that problem going on long term. Is a groundwater and seepage solution important today? Is exterior surface, if exterior surfaces are porous, is weatherizing to prevent damage important today? Okay, so wind-driven rain, foundation cracks, all these sorts of things that we look for on the outside of the space when we're doing an inspection to know if we've got intrusions from the outside in. Know what's going on in the inspection, which we're going to get to over here in just a moment, but then take that back into your clarity for today's visit and understand if exterior surfaces are porous, is weatherizing to prevent damage important today? And as you get into other seasons, right, you might notice maybe that's not as important to somebody in spring, but as you're getting toward fall, right, when the rains start to come, when the storms, hurricane season starts to come along, right, you might notice an uptick in that importance. And you might want to spin this question because, by the way, these are all made to be modified, right? You're going to get started with this stuff and you're going to go, I want to reword that question. The great thing about I'll just call it the Enviroguard community, us, our customers, where the brains that stuff like this comes out of is we're constantly tweaking and refining. And if you're in the Gulf South or if you're in the Midwest or Northeast, all of our climate zones are very different. We're in the mountains of North Carolina here, which is a lot like nowhere else. We're in the middle of a rainforest that is at altitude where we have moisture constantly and freeze-thaw damage constantly and exposure to alkalines and salts constantly because we get a lot of snow here, right? So depending upon your climate zone, you might have high winds, right? If you're in the Gulf regions up into Mississippi and Arkansas and places like that, or on the Great Lakes. So keep in mind, these are meant to be modified. I'll keep going. Is controlling moisture from the earth important to you today? And the follow-up to that, are you wanting a basic vapor barrier or are you wanting to seal it off once and for all, right? Find out if they want a cheap fix or a permanent fix, right? It's the difference between, a simple 6 mil vapor barrier and maybe going up to, I love the Viper vapor barriers, the 10 mil reinforced, that's like half the weight of the 20 mil stuff. I love that stuff. Is minimizing outdoor water intrusion important to you today? Is a sump pump solution important for today's visit? And if so, is a solution to keep the space dry all the time important in case of power outages, storms, and electrical failure? And if possible, is an insulation solution important for today's visit? Okay? So again, we could add to these, but think about the types of questions that you ask and create clarity for the day's visit right there, okay? And then that will be duplicatable for your company, and we'll help you with it. Now, once we've gone through this, I talked about the interview and clarity. Now we're going to move to the accomplish list. Okay, so they've told us what's important to them today. Now we want to be in agreement with what we're going to focus on with the customer. So the accomplished list is kind of built like this. Okay, you told me that if mold is found, that remediation and prevention is important to you today. Would you like me to add that to your accomplished list? And they say, yes, let's add that to the accomplished list. Great. I'm adding, right, fix mold permanently, or however you want to say that, right? Remediate and prevent mold permanently, right? Add that to the accomplished list. Okay, next question. You said that if mold staining is found, you want that removed as well. Are we saying that you want me to add to your accomplished list, remove mold staining if found today? Yes. Okay. Go through that on each one. I know it sounds tedious, okay? I know it sounds like you're double dipping from your clarity for today's visit to your accomplished list, but it's going to make a difference in your sales. Take the time right there to agree with your customer in writing what their accomplished list is, because guess what? Things are going to change between now and the time that they see the price of the service. And then it's going to be a question of what's most important to them really today, right? So keep in mind that you're going to use this accomplished list with your customer later on, so that when this is going to cost $20,000 to accomplish, they go, wow, okay, now it's a question of, well, what do you want to remove from your accomplished list? You said that these 6 things you want to accomplish today. What would you like to remove? Or do you need that financing program that we spoke about, right? This is where you're trying to use technical information to close the sale, right? Who, what, when, why, how, all of those types of questions get you closer to the sale. And so the accomplished list initially brings everything down to a point where they say, this is what we want to accomplish in today's visit. Now, once we've got that accomplished list built, now we're going to go do the inspection. Okay? Why? You understand what's important to the customer. You've clarified it. You know what they want to accomplish. Now let's go see what all the problems are. Okay? Because we haven't done the inspection yet. You don't want to do the inspection until you've accomplished those other 3 things. Now go do the inspection, right? And here we've got exterior inspection, interior inspection, areas for you to move things. But let me just give you an idea of this. Draw a foundation footprint. So this one's designed for a crawl space or a basement, by the way. So draw a foundation footprint. Inspect guttering and downspouts. Note landscape grading on all 4 sides. Note Rylem test results. Rylem is let me see here. Rylem is like this. This will tell you how much moisture is moving into the outside of a building. Existing vents, number and size. Note flashing and caulking failure. Note access points. Then interior inspection, foundation cracks, interior drywall cracks, window and door operation. Note floor joist direction. Note any obstacles. Note electrical. Note plumbing. Note any standing water. Note existing ventilation, moisture content, humidity levels, efflorescence, moisture intrusion, foundation seepage, visible or structural damage, plumbing leaks, condensation, visible mold, odor. Inspect vapor barrier. Inspect insulation. Okay? Once you've got all that information and you've got the foundation wall type, wall height, exterior wall type, joist type, subflooring type, mechanicals, and you're able to create total square footage and total lineal footage, now you've got all the information that you need to go to the next step, which is the education, okay? So you got to build all the information first so you can bring it back to your customer and be on the same page with the truth of the matter, right? What it is that they're looking to accomplish today, all the problems that are going on that lead you to that solution or that education. And then this is what 2022 is about for us as the Enviroguard team, because we've always produced some sales materials, but I know we can do better. I know what we can do is that we can shoot videos here for you that take your customer in 2 minutes through why the solution makes sense, why it has value, what problems it solves permanently for that customer. And we can give you those videos so that when it comes time to educate your customer here, it's not just you. It's a third party that's educating them, taking them through, you know, it may start out something like this. In crawl spaces where moisture tends to be a problem due to foundation walls, mechanicals, and moisture from the ground, we prioritize, et cetera, right? So it would be 2 minutes of showing the customer in a video exactly why they need a passive moisture control for their crawl space or their attic space or whatever it might be. So that's our next step here. We're actually moving directly into that next week by putting a video together that complements this video. I don't know how that's happening, but that complements this video. We want to spend some time with you and do some training on this stuff first, and then get to the point where you've got the expectation that we're here to support you with the educational materials. Now, we've got print materials already to help with this. We're going to take it to the next step and provide those videos that can go on the website, into your social media, into a blog, or into an email, so that you can educate your customer when you feel it's necessary to, you know, create some additional education for your customer. And then finally, the estimate and the close, right? So we hope that this kind of video format where we go through these 3 areas is helpful to you, and that we discuss the different tools along the way, the products, educate on as much the product as how to use them and how to sell them as anything else. And if you have suggestions for us, please put them in the comments below this video. We want to hear back from everybody. We want to continually make improvements because, like I mentioned before, your bottom line is our priority, because the more that you sell, the more that we sell ultimately, right? It's good for both of us. So we appreciate everybody being here today. Again, let us know at support@Enviroguard Direct. If you do want access to the Zoho dock system, we'll be happy to provide that to you. And we'll work with you every step of the way to perfect the tools that you need, whether it's in the form of a presentation for a group, a print handout, or even a video, so that you can sell more in 2022. Thanks for spending time with us today, and we'll see you in a couple weeks when we're going to go step by step through the BTM system, soup to nuts. We're going to show you how to not only build it the right way, but all the new accessories and quick connects and everything that we do, and then how to maintenance it properly and how to use it to your advantage in the field and when not to use it at the same time. There's a lot of jobs that you should use the BTM system on. There's some jobs that you shouldn't use it on. So we're going to talk about that in about 2 weeks' time. So thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.